Hello, everybody. Welcome to Joe the Lawyer. Today, we're going to take a look at some law and see whether President Donald Trump broke the law by inciting a riot. Now, I'm going to look at a California statute that criminalizes inciting a riot. Then we're going to go through exactly what Donald Trump said on the day that the Capitol was stormed, and I'm going to give you my opinion as to whether his language would fit the requirement of the criminal code in the context of First Amendment speech. And then I'm also going to let you decide. So I'm going to be putting my own little spin on this. The media has been putting their spin on it. You ultimately will be the ones to decide. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name's Joe Pometto, Joe the Lawyer. I'm a practicing attorney out of Pittsburgh, PA. I cover the news, legal stories, and do legal analysis here on this channel. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Those are free ways to support the show. You can also sign up for my email list. Before we begin, I'm going to take a little ritual from my other channel, the Common Sense Academy, and we're going to do a same time sip. Raise your cup, your glass in the air. You know me. Those of you who do, I like Diet Coke. Sip with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Cheers. Okay. So I printed out these documents here, and we're going to talk about this. All right. So Donald Trump had, I believe it was on January 6th. My God, this article doesn't even have the freaking date. And okay. January 6th, the Capitol was stormed by a mob. Everybody knows what happened. It was a Save America march that was held by President Donald Trump. Currently, he was impeached in the House of Representatives. There's going to be an impeachment trial in the Senate. But I want to talk about whether or not he broke the criminal law. So first, we're going to take a look at what the criminal law is, and I pulled this from a California code, all right? It's one of the biggest state in the union. We're going to go off this. They're all pretty much the same, all right? In order to be convicted for inciting a riot, the following three elements must be met. So this would require the prosecution. The prosecution has the burden to prove these three elements to show that someone is guilty of committing the crime of inciting the riot. Number one, the defendant, who is the actor who's accused of the crime, okay? Number one, the defendant committed an act or engaged in conduct that encouraged a riot or urged others to commit acts of force or violence or to burn or destroy property. Number one. Number two, all three of these have to be met, okay? Number two, the defendant acted at a time and place and under reasonable circumstances that produced a clear, present, and immediate danger that a riot would occur. Number three, and when the defendant acted, he or she intended to cause a riot. So element number one, defendant committed an act or engaged in conduct that encouraged a riot, urged others to commit acts of force or violence. So that act that urges others, it could be a variety of different things, right? It could be verbal speech. It could possibly be hand signals, okay? It could be writing on a piece of paper. So there's a whole bunch of ways to communicate that message, make an act. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt here and say that there was an act because Trump gave a speech and not long afterwards, and if you want a good timeline, all right, go over to the Legal Eagle. I'm going to put a link in the description below. He gives a pretty good timeline of this happening, all right? He did a good video on this. I encourage you to watch that video as well. But my take's going to be a little bit different, so stay tuned here. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that the prosecution, number one, could probably prove an act that caused, okay, that there was an act. That's an element of the crime. Number two, defendant acted at a time and place under reasonable circumstances, produced a clear, present, and immediate danger that a riot would occur. That one's a little more testy, right? And I say that because protests and speeches are given all the time down in Washington, D.C. Now, this particular speech occurred on the White House Rotunda, I believe, so it was right around the White House, and I believe that it's almost a mile away from the Capitol building, something like that. So is it a time and place? That one's a little shaky, right? I'm going to give them the act. I don't know if I'm going to give them a time and place where it could be reasonable to expect a riot to occur. Okay. Number 3, and when the defendant acted, he or she intended to cause a riot. So that is the tough part. That is the one that really is open for interpretation here. So with these 3 things in mind, was there an act? Was it a time and place where a riot could be expected to occur? And number 3, okay, did the defendant intend that for that riot to occur? Those are the 3 things I want you to keep in mind while we go through the language that Donald Trump used during the riot. So here, I believe this was in a tweet or some point in a speech, he said, you know, when the Save America March was scheduled, he said, be there, will be wild. Be there, will be wild. That was put out into the ether. So large crowds come to see this rally, multiple speeches. Donald Trump, I believe, was the last one to speak. All right. Now, these are his words. These are Trump's words. Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer, and we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people, and we're going to have to fight much harder. That's one quote. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably going to be cheering so much for some of them because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. And I believe these 2 statements were close in time to this 3rd statement where he says, I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. So some of the key language here is, you know, he makes references to fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. Now, that's commonplace in political speech. Commonplace. We have to fight for your rights, right? That's commonplace in political speech. It doesn't mean go and start a fight, generally. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that statement in and of itself is incitement to a riot. Okay, he says you have to show strength. You have to be strong. Again, commonplace in political speech and also not a direct incitement to violence. And then he sort of caps that off by saying to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. So he throws in there that it should be done peacefully. That obviously goes against any intent to actually cause a riot. Okay. Next, he says at one point, Trump says in the speech, when you catch somebody in a fraud, you are allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do. And I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos, Republicans in name only, and the stupid people that he's listening to. So the language here, you are allowed to go by very different rules. Again, there may be an implication there that the normal peaceful rules don't apply, but that takes it takes a bit of a leap to draw that conclusion. But that implication could possibly be drawn by people in the crowd. I accept that. Okay, but again, it's not. I don't see any direct call to violence there. Here, it's claimed that he insinuates Republican officials, including Pence, would endanger themselves by accepting Biden's win. I don't even know if I should go through this part because it doesn't really add even that much context. But he said, I hope Mike is going to do the right thing, referring to Mike Pence again, who could have stepped in and taken some action to have the election recounted or recast. Okay, I hope so because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. And I just spoke to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. I don't know if that adds anything. At a certain point, he says that he wants to thank the senators who stepped up, I believe, to oppose the certification of the election. Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, Josh Hawley. I actually think, though, it takes, again, more courage not to step up, and I think a lot of those people are going to find that out. Again, this is some of the language that's going to be used against him. I don't think those two lines really add any context. Okay, so here's some important lines here. He says during the speech, "We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that is what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal." Okay, this is, no direct call to violence, not even an insinuation to fight. It says we will do something, but there's no specification of what should be done. Okay, but he does say we won't let it happen. We will stop the steal. Again, bit of a logical jump to conclude violence from that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. You will have an illegitimate president. This is what you will have, and we can't let that happen. These are the facts that you won't hear from the fake news media. It's all part of the suppression effort. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So again, these add some context because he's making a desperate plea, it sounds like, that something must be done. But at no point is he saying exactly what it is that should be done. Okay, is he implying something? I don't know. There could be some people in the crowd who pick up an implication. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Okay, so final quote we're going to look into here. "Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We are going to the Capitol. And we are going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless. They are never voting for anything, not even one vote, but we are going to try. Give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country." Now, that there is going to be used against him, but that sounds to me like a call to go down to the Capitol and continue the protest so that the Republicans inside will hear the protest or know that the protest is going on and then decide to take a stand in their voting of the certification. I don't know how that could be drawn as to say, go inside and try to stop them or attack them, etc., etc. I just don't see it there. So while I conclude that some people here, the people in a crowd, when you have thousands and thousands of people, all right, everybody's going to take language in a different way. There may have been people that came down there to begin with bad intentions. And all the individuals that broke the law here, trespassed, destroyed property, engaged in assaults, possibly of a police officer. Again, I don't know all the facts of what happened, but anybody who broke the law here that the police can identify should be prosecuted. Anybody who broke the law here should be prosecuted. This can't be allowed. This crowd got out of hand. They stormed the Capitol. These people need to be prosecuted. That is certainly my opinion. But under the criminal law, especially beyond a reasonable doubt, you have to conclude that the defendant acted or intended to cause a riot. And from that language alone, even though there are calls to fight, calls to stop the steal, calls to take back the country, there's no clear incitement to violence. I don't see any clear incitement to violence or clear incitement to riot. At a certain point, Donald Trump says to do this peacefully, okay? And at a certain point, he says to go and make your voice heard. And to do it in a way that would convince the senators inside to change their vote. I don't think that the words that Donald Trump used would meet the requirements of this statute. Therefore, under the criminal law, I don't believe that he incited a riot. Now, that gets back to the point of impeachment, right? Impeachment is much more vague in the Constitution, something along the lines of high crimes and misdemeanors. But it's my understanding that the constitutional law surrounding the impeachment doesn't require. Some scholars may say this, that it requires an actual crime by the president, but the majority of scholars are not going to say that a crime needed to be committed. It can be something that was, let's say, less than a crime. Therefore, the impeachment proceedings, are likely the best avenue for any type of punishment to be doled out to Donald Trump here. And I'm not saying whether or not he should be impeached. I'm just saying impeachment would cover a wider variety of conduct than the criminal law. And remember too, under the criminal law, you have to reach beyond a reasonable doubt. So did Donald Trump incite a riot within the meaning of the criminal law? I would say my opinion would be almost certainly not. Is this, however, an offense that he could possibly be impeached for? Well, the other thing to think about with impeachment is it's a political tool. It's a political tool. Really, all that matters in order to impeach somebody is if you have enough votes to make it happen. If you can convince enough House of Republican or House of Representatives, enough members of the House of Representatives, and if you can convince enough senators, then you can impeach someone and convict them at a trial. Okay, period, end of story. It doesn't necessarily have to be a crime. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the impeachment proceedings. That is probably the proper tool here rather than the criminal law. I think any case criminally would fail miserably, and I'm not giving an opinion one way or another on whether the impeachment should be brought, okay, or whether there should be a conviction at the impeachment. What I'm saying, though, is that is likely the proper tool for the government to use if they're looking to go after Donald Trump in these circumstances. One more thing to throw out here, and I do believe that this plays a role in the would play a role in the criminal prosecution, but also in the impeachment. All right. Political speech is highly protected under the First Amendment. Political speech is highly protected. So back in 2016, Donald Trump was, I believe, there was a case where he was sued for inciting a riot, and the court said that his speech was political in nature, and it was when he had told the people in his rally to get somebody out of there, and the guy allegedly he got beat up. But at one point, Trump said, don't hurt him, get him out of there. And the court stuck on those words. The court was like, he said, don't hurt him. And so the court found that he hadn't incited a riot, and this was under, I believe, a civil law, which has an even lesser burden than the criminal law. And here, Trump, during the speech, said to go down there, go to march peacefully. Okay, and political speech, there are, you can look over political speeches and things that people have said and done in certain circumstances, the politicians have said and done. You can probably find language that is far worse than what Donald Trump said in his speech. So I'm going to point you to two more videos to get more context around this. I do think that you should go and see what Legal Eagle said. I'll put that link in the description below. I also think that you should take a look at the speech that Rand Paul gave on the Senate floor in regards to the impeachment and the constitutionality of it. Very interesting. It's going to give you greater context, and I will let everybody draw their own conclusions when it comes to impeachment. However, like I said, I don't believe he could be prosecuted and convicted under the criminal law. In a similar circumstance in 2016 or 17, they couldn't even bring a civil case against him. The judge threw the case out. Political speech in this country is highly, highly protected. In order to incite a riot, you're probably going to need something very direct, such as go, and this example here would be, go to the Capitol, break in, commit violent acts, something along those lines would no longer likely be protected. But most of what we're looking at here in this speech almost certainly is. So I felt the need to speak on this topic, put my opinion out there because it's such a big topic right now. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Joe Pometto, Joe the Lawyer. You like my content, like, subscribe, comment, and share. That's a free way to support this show. Thank you very much.